Before we get into talking about the actual controls, I just wanted to mention a couple things about the setup. First of all, it isn't based on a live template, so it'll work with any live set. Secondly, it only uses one scene on the nanoKONTROL, so you're free to use the other 3 scenes however you want. And lastly, there's no display on the unit, so there's an on-screen display that'll show you which mode or bank you're in. These are controls that stay the same regardless of which mode or bank you're in. First, you got the transport controls. You got play, stop, and record. Rewind and fast forward are your track up and down buttons. And the loop button is your shift button. Each one of these transport controls also has a shifted function. Shift plus play is scene launch. Shift plus stop is scene stop. Shift plus record is undo. And shift plus track up and down is bank up and down, which works differently depending on which mode you're in. Next set of global controls is over here on the 9th strip. This knob controls scene selection. The fader controls master level, which I can't show you right now. And the top button controls knob modes. The bottom button controls button modes. The faders always control volume in every mode except for user mode, which we'll get into in just a little bit. But they start off by controlling tracks 1 through 8. And these are bankable, so I can switch to tracks 9 through 16. Or I could switch to the return tracks and control up to 8 returns. The knobs start off by controlling pan for the first 8 tracks, and these are bankable just like the faders were. The next mode is sends, and here you can control the first 8 sends on a track, and you can switch between tracks with the track left and right buttons. The next mode is device mode, and you can control the first device on a track here. Alright, and if you have more than one device, you could switch between devices, and the display will show you which device you're on there. Alright, and you can control up to 8 devices this way. Alright, press the button again to get back to pan mode. And there's one last knob mode, that's a shifted mode. You press shift plus knob mode, and you get into in-out mode. And here you can control the input-output section. So you can control the input type, input channel, output, and output channel. The default mode for the buttons is mute solo. And these are bankable just like the knobs and faders were. And these have a really cool function. If you just press them relatively quickly, they'll be just like a normal mute switch. They'll just toggle mute on or off. But if you hold them down, they become momentary switches. All right, and solo works the same way. The next mode is clip arm. And in this mode, the bottom button's arm tracks. All right, and those are bankable. And the top buttons launch clips. All right, and if shift plus, the top buttons will stop clips. You can select the clip you want to launch with the scene select knob here. All right. Next mode is increase decrease, and each set of buttons in this mode will increase or decrease the parameter that the knob is assigned to. So right now the knobs are assigned to pan, so these will control pan of the tracks. With these buttons, if you press them just relatively quickly, they'll increase or decrease the parameter by 1. If you hold them down, they'll scroll. The last mode is user mode. You get to this mode by pressing shift plus button mode. And let me just bring up the map here just so it's easier to see. First of all, this is the only mode that has a map. And the cool thing is you can leave the map up, and when you switch out of user mode, it'll go away until you get back into user mode. But anyway, in this mode, the global controls are still the same, but everything else is pretty much different. First of all, knob 8 right here controls tempo in 2 BPM increments. All right, for big sweeping tempo changes. And knobs 1 through 7 are assignable to whatever you want in live. And after you've assigned them to stuff, you can assign labels to them. So when you bring up this map, you can see what you've assigned them to. The same thing goes for the first 8 faders. You can assign them to stuff and then assign labels to them. And then with these buttons here, you can assign them to different live functions. The first 16 buttons here, they're all assignable. And you can do general stuff like arrow keys or browser-related controls, to relatively advanced stuff like switching select on, launch, on and off. You know what I mean? So you have a lot of different functions. There's over 60 to choose from. And let me just show you how you do all these assignments. You go in here to the edit user mode. And first of all, for the labels for the knobs and faders, you just click on one of these buttons and then just, assign a label. So we'll say, fader 1 or whatever. Well, that's a knob, but good enough. All right, and then you could preview, what you've done here, the change you made. So you have just assigned that label. All right, and all the labels work the same way. For assigning the buttons, you just click on one of the buttons. It'll show you what the button is currently assigned to. And then you could choose from the different function types, like general functions, your up, down, left, right, that sort of thing with enter, delete, cut, copy, paste. browser-related controls. You got local controls, which are tracker clip-related controls, like inserting audio tracks, inserting MIDI clips, that sort of thing. Other is various stuff like turning follow on and off. If you use Reason, you can set up a switch to switch between Live and Reason's windows. Just a lot of different stuff, and you can just assign those, choose the function you want, assign it, and then you can preview that as well, and the map will reflect, the change you just made. All right, and once you're done doing all your assignments, you just click Finish,